Alright, hey guys, my name is Lionel Yu, and I'm the pianist behind the YouTube channel MusicalBasics. Okay, so when I was little, my number one dream was to be able to play piano on stage at a beautiful concert hall, my own music, for hundreds of fans who bought tickets just to listen to me, okay? And I think for musicians, this is a universal goal. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you're probably similar to me, which is you're not signed to a record label, right? And you've been doing music for 5, 10, or 15 years, maybe more. And you've put your music online at Spotify, YouTube, and all these sites. You've released a bunch of songs and albums, and you have fans. You have an audience that's not just local, but also around the world because of the internet. But unfortunately, no one's really knocking on your door asking you to perform at some shows. And even if you are getting some opportunities, they're not the ideal performances that you want. Maybe it's a poor sound system. Maybe it's not the best stage or setting. Maybe it's like a limited amount of time, or they have a requirement for the kind of music that you perform. Like, you can only perform like a cover song of some famous singer. You can't perform your own music, right? Or the worst. The worst is the audience that doesn't care about you or your music. I've done corporate gigs where I was paid a lot of money, but half the audience was checking their phone, waiting for me to finish, Or even worse, they were just talking to each other and not appreciating the music. So what's the solution to all of this? Just rent out a concert hall and host your own concert. I've already done this 4 times myself at large concert halls such as Carnegie Hall and the Kennedy Center in DC. And so at my latest show at the Kennedy Center, we sold out to an audience of over 350 people. This may seem like a simple solution, but it's actually a lot of work, and there's a lot of traps and obstacles. So I'm going to give you guys 10 tips so that you don't walk into your own concert as blindly as I did. And I'm pretty sure this is the only guide on the internet on how to host your own concert. Tip number 1 is, first you have to choose an appropriate hall or venue. If you're doing rock music or hip hop, Carnegie Hall is probably not the right place for you. But even in Carnegie Hall, there's 3 different halls. They have a 260-person WOW recital hall, the 600-person Zankel Hall, or the 2,800-person Stern Auditorium. I really recommend for your first show to do a hall that seats around 100 to 200 people, okay? So that you don't end up with a mostly empty audience. And it's gonna get pretty expensive. One rental is gonna cost around $3,000 to $10,000. Okay, and that's for a decent hall with really good acoustics. You could probably find a local bar or club that charges less for an evening concert, but just keep in mind that the bigger you go with regards to the hall, the more you can charge in terms of ticket price, okay? Okay, so you can make a lot of that money back with ticket sales. Tip number 2 is you want to choose a date and a time, okay? So it's not actually so simple to choose a good day for your first or second big concert, right? Weekdays are cheaper for rentals, but people are less willing to travel very far distances for weekdays. I once did a Monday concert and people had to take off work for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, to attend. So that's really bad. Weekends are generally the best, but you don't want to be too close to any major holidays, especially Christmas, where people already have a bunch of travel plans. You also don't want to be in the dead of winter when it's super cold and no one wants to go outside. You want to give yourself enough time to prepare, but not too much. So I generally say 3 months into the future is a good rule of thumb, especially if you're new to this whole process. I think if you're experienced, you could probably cut it down to 1 month lead time. Tip number 3 is you want to choose a good ticket price, okay? So a lot of people enter their first concert thinking, I just want people to come. Like, I don't care if I have to give out free tickets, right? But I don't think that's a good way of thinking, because if you devalue your work by offering it for free, then even people who get free tickets, they're not necessarily going to come. And if someone's not willing to commit even $30 to come to your show, they probably won't come if you give them like a free ticket or even $10 ticket. Or the worst thing is they will come and in the middle of your show, they will leave, like during intermission or during one of your performances. And that's the worst feeling ever, okay? So for my first show at Carnegie Hall, I charged $35. And then for my most recent one, I charged $55 at the Kennedy Center. So I think the sweet spot is around that range. You don't want to charge over that because then people are like, oh, like what are you, some kind of like celebrity? But then under $35 is people are not really going to value your show, and a lot of them are not going to show up if they pay like really little for your ticket. There is one caveat, which is if your audience is mostly students, then you probably want to have a student discount, like promo code or something. But again, don't charge too little, like $10, because then people will just not show up, okay? I also don't believe in like early bird or last call tickets, like, promotions, because if someone wants to come to your show, they're not going to care if there's like, a $10 discount or something like that. And also, if your venue is standing room only, then you probably have to charge less ticket price. But for my kind of concerts, like classical music or instrumental performance music, I want my audience to be sitting. So tip number 4 is to plan out your marketing right away. As soon as you book the concert, you have to have your marketing idea. No, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be a plan. Of course, your friends and family are going to come. But if you can sell tickets and draw your fans to your shows, then you can perform anywhere you want in the world without having to worry about gatekeepers or sponsors or judges like Sam and Cowell, right? So you have to have a solid marketing plan. I'm not a marketing expert, but what's worked for me in the past is that you have to create really good trailers for your shows, like kind of like movie style, hype up 1 to 2 minute clips, just like making the audience feel like this is a big deal, right? I'm going to show one right now. All my life, I've wanted to be a pianist. And now, it's happening. Kennedy Center, March 13th, 2 p.m. MusicalBasics, a transcendental experience. Limited tickets remaining. Live stream link below. And then number 2 is to have a solid content creation strategy for every week leading up to the concert. So every week you want to be putting out new content, and it doesn't just have to be content related to the concert, but it has to be content that mentions the concert. So it can be content that's like your typical viral content creation stuff, the stuff that trends on the algorithm, but then just for all of this content, you mention your concert. Like one of the first things, right? So that's really important. That's going to get a lot of people to know about your concert. In the end, organic traffic is the best. But then also you want to have like a lot of promotional posts on social media. So you can use Fiverr for this. You can hire graphic designers to create promotional posters. You can hire social media marketers who create like Instagram and Facebook posts. You can hire video editors to put together like promo reels and stuff. I mean, generally you want to do a lot of that yourself too, but you can definitely hire people out. That's my point. Tip number 5 is you want to figure out your team as soon as possible. So even though you as the main musician, you're going to do well over 95% of the work, but you're going to need some help on that last 5%. Just because speaking from experience, it's really hard to do everything by yourself, okay? The first person that most people overlook is to have like a coordinator or a point of contact. So this is like someone who understands your vision and can help coordinate between you and the venue, like some rules and regulations that you have to deal with your contract, because, every rental situation is different. Every venue has different rules, what you can or cannot do. How much merchandise can you sell? How much recording can you do? Like all of that is just depending on the venue. The coordinator can also help you deal with the other performers who are performing at your show, right? Camera people, marketing people, audio people. So a lot of things like logistics, audio, and marketing become overwhelming. And it's better to have someone just kind of overlook all of that, even though you're going to be helping them out a lot, like doing a lot of the work for them. But just having another person watch out for that is really good. It's going to take off a lot of your stress. For marketing, you're going to want to find people right away. The thing is, I actually do all my own marketing now for my concerts because I find that I'm better at doing marketing than the marketing people that I hire. Because, you're doing your concert for the first time, I do recommend hiring people for your first few concerts. What you want to find is you want to find specialists, okay? You want to find a social media specialist who specializes in Facebook and Instagram. You want to find a video ads specialist who can create video advertisement and run ad campaigns for you. And these will run on YouTube mostly, okay? Maybe Reddit or Instagram, but I find that YouTube is the best, okay? And then you're going to have to hire PR people to get the word out. One of the PR people I hired, they got me an interview with NPR, Allison Stewart from NPR. And that was a big deal in helping me sell a few more tickets to the NPR audience. These marketers are not going to be cheap. And it's also like you kind of pay for what you get. So the higher quality they are, the more they're going to charge you, probably around like, $1,000 to $1,500. And then that's also dependent on how much work they're going to do for you. You're going to want a camera crew so that you can capture every moment. You definitely want videographers, photographers. Also, you may need extra performers. A lot of I'm a solo pianist, so I definitely needed a violinist, a cellist, and a singer for my previous show, right? And that's actually the most expensive because they need to practice the repertoire, they need to know my vision, and they need to be on their game. I'm not going to try to pay people less for the most important aspect, which is the performance, Optional, but I think it's very important, is to get an audio engineer. And I'll explain this in my tip number 8, okay? Okay, so tip number 6 is to get the word out. So the most important is to spread awareness about your concert, right? Because even though your life revolves around your music, your audience's lives do not. And sometimes they discovered your music years ago and they loved it back then, but now they forgot about you. And so they would come out to your show as long as they know about it. So you have to get them informed. The way you do this, first, you constantly post to your YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever social media. Every single piece of content you make from now until your concert should reference your concert, right? Obviously. And then you should also create dedicated videos, dedicated trailers, and announcements to hype up your concert as much as possible. And then you should start sending out emails to your mailing list. I mean, I'm assuming that you as a musician, you have one, but you have to target it towards the geographic location of the concert. It's pointless to send an email to someone in France for a concert that's happening in the United States, right? And you want to space out the emails so that they're not happening more than once a week, okay? And then advertisements. Okay, so the YouTube ads are actually very effective for audiences that have already watched your content, okay? And they already know about you. Then YouTube ads is a great way to geo-target the people in the vicinity of your concert area, letting them know that you have a concert and those people are probably going to come out, right? So you're going to need at least $1,000 to $2,000 because ads are not cheap these days, and you definitely want to put in a sizable ad campaign to get this rolling. And I have a lot more marketing tips, but I think it's too much to get into for this video. Tip number 7 is to design a solid program for the day of the performance. Right? So during the performance, you don't want your audience to be bored at any moment. All right. I've made a mistake in the past where, even if you have one song that's a little bit too similar or a little bit too slow, people are going to get bored, right? And you don't want them to feel like they didn't get their money's worth. So the ideal feeling for your audience is like they walk away feeling great, but they still want a little bit more. Not too much, just a little bit, okay? So I think in terms of total runtime, 90 to 100 minutes is the ideal length, okay? Once you get near the 2-hour mark, people are gonna start really wanting to go to the bathroom and they're not gonna pay as much attention, right? But I also don't believe in intermissions. I don't believe in having like a break in the middle because I once did have a show that had an intermission and then 30% of the audience left during the middle. Because it just gives them an excuse to leave. That made me so angry because I spent months preparing for the performance. At the very least, you could just stay through intermission. So I highly recommend against doing intermission. I could definitely talk for hours about designing the program, but generally you want to start off strong with your second or your third biggest banger. And then you want to have like some emotional content or experimental stuff in the middle. And then you want to have your biggest banger in the middle of the show. Okay, so not at the beginning and not at the end. I know famous musicians usually put their biggest hit at the end, right? Like Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On, she always sings that last. But that's because they already have experience. They're confident that they can keep the show interesting throughout the whole 2 hours or whatever. But for you, as your first time concert, it's better to put your biggest banger in the middle, okay? And then you want to change things up between every piece or song. So you want to have things like the mood, genre, style, instrumentation, like just change throughout. So in my previous concert, I had piano trio, which is, piano, violin, cello, right? Piano trio, and then piano solo, and then piano trio again, and then piano solo with a backing track like EDM, and then a piano trio again. So basically having that differentiation between all of the pieces really helps the audience not get bored. Obviously, if you're only doing piano or if you're only doing one instrument like your voice, then you kind of just have to change between the energy levels, like exciting and fast to slow, emotional to whatever, something else like humorous. So tip number 8 is you want to figure out your audio in advance, okay? So this is not so important for non-amplified music, like really classical chamber music, but for most modern musicians, we are all mic'd up in some way. And we have like these in-ear monitors or these front monitors. So this is something that most venues do provide, but I really recommend that you figure out the monitoring situation yourself. Because at my last show, we just had a lot of monitoring problems, and the audio people at the venue, they never quite understand your vision the way you understand it. So if you have your own audio engineer who knows how to adjust your levels from your microphone to your in-ears, then you save yourself literally half the battle when you go into the venue for your rehearsal. And typically when you rent out these halls, you only have that day of to rehearse. Maybe it's like a few hours before the show. You don't get like that extra day that you really need to do the sound check. But if you do, then you should take full advantage and make sure the sound check is completely on point, right? Again, having an audio person who figures out the sound situation with you beforehand. The mics, the monitoring, the backing tracks, the click tracks, the live streaming, the audio capturing, right? All of that needs to be just figured out ahead of time. Okay, so tip number 9 is get it all on record. Some venues don't let you record the video or audio, and that's fine, there's nothing you can do about it. But the ones that do, you want to capture as much video and audio as you can. There are a few things worse than playing a fantastic show. Your crowd loves it, but then you don't have really good evidence of it happening besides some people's phone, like Instagram stories. And that's really bad quality for both video and audio. So that actually happened to me in my concert in Germany. My microphone for my camera, which was recording the whole thing, did not capture the audio properly. So I just had a silent recording of 1 hour and 40 minutes. Don't make the same mistake I did. Have multiple camera people. So this time I had 2 video people. I had 1 photographer, just making sure every single moment was captured at as many different angles as possible. And so I'd highly recommend doing that. Also, some venues don't allow camera people to be on stage. So like Carnegie Hall did not, Kennedy Center did not. But guess what? As the performer, you yourself have your own phone. So during my show, I just pulled out my phone and I took selfies with the audience. I just recommend doing that to make sure you get as much footage. In fact, I think it's a good idea to wear a GoPro. But yeah, there's a big difference between a really good quality video and audio capturing of the event versus like, a crappy phone recording, right? And any good quality content you capture is going to be amazing content for your future promotional projects. So that's also just amazing. And then the final tip, number 10, is you're going to have to be ready for a lot of work and a lot of pain. To host your own concert, it's not for the weak. It's not for the timid. You will face a lot of rejection, especially when you start telling people about your concert, right? And you will quickly realize who your true friends are. The people who will make an effort to come to your concert versus the people who won't even come even if you give them free tickets because they act like it's such a chore. Right? For my first and second concerts, I went over budget by at least $10,000 each, right? Basically, all my savings that I had saved up for years at my job, I just put them all into the concerts. Lost a lot of money, but I learned valuable lessons that you can only learn through experience, okay? Selling tickets is gonna drive you crazy. Unless you're lucky enough to sell out weeks before the concert. In that case, you probably don't even need to watch my video. But chances are you're probably going to be worried about ticket sales up until the last day. And that's just the fact of life. Selling tickets is probably the number 1 most difficult thing to do as a musician. And it really sucks to play to a mostly empty crowd if you don't sell many tickets. But it builds character. It's something that all musicians should go through at least once in their life because it makes you humble, right? And then during the process, you just want to keep your head up and stay positive because you're doing something beautiful. You're creating an amazing once in a lifetime event for your fans. You're giving them a memory that will last forever. If they're your fans, they've wanted to see you perform live for years, so you're fulfilling a dream for them. And so even though you're gonna lose a lot of money, and I'm not gonna lie to anyone, you're just gonna be down money. Just be prepared to lose money, but also know that you're doing something really special that very few people in this world could ever even dream of doing. And so I know 99% of you guys are never going to host your own concert. You're just going to think about it. But there is going to be 1% or 0.1% of you who is brave enough to try. If you do decide to do it, you can send me a message. Just look me up on YouTube or whatever and send me a message. Good luck, and I hope the best for you.